Where do you see it being, let's say that Matrix test 5 years from now, if you were to revisit it, obviously excluding any roadmaps or things like that that are more specific, but like just in terms of where you think real time is going to be 5 years from now, in terms of tackling something like that? Like, do you see photoreal characters? Do you see how you approach it?
I think we are collectively as an industry going to cross the uncanny valley in the next 5 years. Really, I've been saying this for years, so maybe my 5 years is a bit optimistic, but we're getting so close. And if you're on an NVIDIA card, you've got, and even the new AMD cards, you've got AI hardware in there, so you can do deepfakes over the top. So I think uncanny valley for faces is going to get fixed. I think we've still got a lot of work to do with animation technology, and the team is doing a ton of work for in-game animation. Although it's quite different. When you're controlling a character, your brain's requirements for an interactive experience are quite different from a cinematic experience. So it's, and at some point you should talk to Naughty Dog, if you haven't, about how they make their games, because they're really trying to go for maximum cinematic feel. And it's actually hard if you're getting a character to look good to your eye, yet feel good and look human is really hard. I'll be honest, I haven't seen any game totally nail it. There's always a gamification if you just analyze the animation without feeling it, yeah, while you're playing the thing. So I think there's a ton of work to be done there. I think AI is going to revolutionize the last 5% of computer graphics. So I think that we'll get to a point, hopefully within 5 years, and at worst 10 years, where we really have solved all the rendering problems and we can produce damn convincing images. The exciting stuff that I want to see is more, and I'm not just talking about AR, like more connections between the real and the virtual world. You're playing a game, something's happening in the physical world at the same time as you're playing a game, you're contributing, you're collaborating. I think there's a lot of interesting space there. How we experience performance art and social art, I think is going to change dramatically. I look at what people watch now, in the evening, like Fox with the Masked Singer and stuff. People love that stuff. And I'm like, that in the metaverse could be amazing. And the ability of individuals to partake in mass entertainment is incredible. And on the visual effects side, if we're talking about visual effects, I think what's going to happen is, it's going to be interesting. I think the in-camera visual effects stuff will get so far. We're going to improve the engine visual capabilities. The screens are going to get better. They're going to turn into light field displays at some point. But I feel that there'll be a point, we have this problem is they're not very bright right now, and the colors aren't really great. So they're not awesome for DPs. That has to get fixed, but that's nothing that we can do about that. That's really about, it's about the display manufacturers, the camera manufacturers, and then maybe a little bit of AI augmentation. I think that, Paul Debevic is starting to experiment. Hey, if you have an image with slightly crappy light, can AI make that look like it should have done if you shot it with good light? And I think there's something there that'll happen. But I think what's going to happen as well is that the ability for a computer to distinguish what were the pixels that were fed to the LED volume during the photography, remove them and replace them with better versions of them pixels that don't have the focus at the plane of the screen, that have better lens effects. I think that through the fact that we record everything we send to the display device, and we track the camera and all this new generation of AI stuff, I think we're going to find post-production it's not going to totally go away, because people always want to polish pixels. I don't see, if you give them the ability to do that, they will polish pixels. So I think there's going to be a new type of post-production come up that's sort of AI assisted, that allows you to improve over what you were able to get on the day. But taking away the mundane stuff like the roto and the green screens and all the stuff that is very ultra labor intensive and not that creative. Although quite frankly, I know some of the most creative people I know are roto artists, but I think we're going to see evolution there, or maybe even a revolution about how we think about post-production. And then I think then post-production teams are literally going to go with the production and the editor and the director. They may be sat at home or sat in a studio, but I think that they will always feel very connected. And I'm hoping that directors, instead of just feeling that they've got this one person as the visual effects supervisor or conduit, they feel they've really got a whole crew out there. Obviously, you don't want free-for-all. You're a supervisor. You don't want the total free-for-all. But I think it'll become a more collaborative process because of the technology evolution.
I'm really excited for that. One thing I was going to mention is that I was chatting with Doug Roble. We're on a panel together with NVIDIA and Google a few months ago. I kept telling him I'm easily the dumbest person in the room at that given time, but He was talking about the performance capture that they were doing at DD when he was there before he went to Facebook, and he made a statement which I thought was quite polarizing, which was that in the next 5 years he imagines that no one's going to be keyframing anymore. It's going to be, looking at your phone, doing the performance into your phone, and capturing that performance in real time to your characters. And it's a bold statement to make, but it's one of those things that is interesting to see, like, where things are all headed.
I think the motion input from consumer level devices for even in your games, we have a cinematic system in Fortnite, replay system. It'd be great if people could just make their own little dances and emotes that are their own and they film them. I think that's going to happen. I think it'll get pretty good over the next 5 years. I don't disagree there, but I think Doug is applying a slightly nerdy view to the artistic. I think there'll always be the need to tweak things and have an artistic augmentation. They may be totally different tools from the traditional keyframing, but I think the idea that it's just a human body and it's all algorithms, I think sort of underestimates how important the creative process is. But I made that leap. I started as an engineer. I've never been as smart as Doug, but when you start making stuff and you're responsible for the creative output as well, you realize that there's a magic there, and it's not all technology. Technology is it's a new type of oil paint, a new paintbrush. It's a new tool that allows the artist to create. So I think they're going to completely revolutionize over the next 5-10 years. But I don't think that artistic endeavors where somebody's putting in some blood, sweat, and tears to make something cooler or better, I don't think that's going to ever go away. That's why everybody gets so excited about all the AI art stuff now, and I'm like, it's a good tool. I think if we're not putting any human imagination or human experiences on top of that, I think it's going to be a very sad, boring world, because it's all going to look like it's. I look at it as convolution right now. It's that this mixed up with this, mixed up with this.
Well, there's no direction. I mean, you are giving it some direction into GPT-3, and it kind of interprets that and does something with it. But I think it's the same way you look at even like fluid sims or global illumination, radiosity, like all these things that go back 20-25 years ago. It's kind of hit a button and let it cook for a couple of days or whatever, and it wasn't like you really had too much creative control. But bit by bit, like, the computer's always been seen as a cheat compared to doing it manually, things like that. But bit by bit, it's just the tools become part of your tool set. And I do think things like DALL-E or Mid Journey are going to be things that maybe down the line, like, they become more verbose. You have more input rather than just a command line. You actually can circle an area, and the same way of Photoshop, you can do content aware.
I think it's a tool. I think it's a tool to help to aid discovery, and it's that random number generator we talked about earlier. Where an idea that you wouldn't have necessarily had pops into your head from it. I just don't think it should be where you end. I think it should be inspiration for, okay, that's great. Now how do we add something that nobody's ever seen before? Because you can see, you just look at everything looks kind of similar. You can tell whether you can also.
I'm hoping it becomes more for mood boards, things like that. It's not really part of the final process.